Yes, people, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Above the Knee. As always, I'm Liam Loftus, and we are joined by Jay Extended. How are you, bro?
I'm happy, man. Looking forward to this. Another good one.
Buzzing?
Buzzing.
We've been waiting for this one for a little while. We've been looking forward to it. We've been chasing you. Amie Cripps, how are you?
I'm good. Don't say that. That sounds really bad.
No, not so. We're just excited for this episode. We're a big fan of your work, so we're looking forward to sitting down with you.
Thank you. I feel really privileged to kind of like be invited and to be on board. I'm a fan of your work too. Just like profiling some epic women who are doing what they do just to kind of make football even more brilliant.
Awesome. So to start, I want to start from your beginning. When I first came across you on Twitter, and it was like, and you're like former history teacher, and now you're the women's football editor at Versus. How's that journey happened?
Oh God, it's like a mad origin story.
Love it. I'm here for it. That's what we live for.
So like I grew up in a single parent household in Tower Hamlets, and my mum worked super hard, but obviously with a lot of single parent households it's quite difficult. So she was at work quite a lot, and my grandparents had like a massive role in helping to bring me up. And my granddad is 100% the reason why I love football. And he was also the reason why I had to do really well at the school. So school was like a sort of safe place for me. And I think that when you come from like a predominantly working class background, it's really difficult to kind of see beyond like your immediate family and your immediate bubble. So I love school. I knew that school was a really good thing. So growing up, I thought I'll be a teacher. Like that seems really sensible, like that seems like a really secure job, like everybody will be really proud of me, like nobody's done that in my family type of thing. So then I went through secondary school, sixth form, university, where I studied history, came out and was like, right, okay, like I've got my history degree, let's be a teacher. Like at that point the aim had never changed. I still love football at this point, by the way. I've not like dropped off a cliff and fallen out of love with the game, like that's never going to happen. And so then after uni, I worked with children who have special educational needs. And I did that in a school in North London in Ali Pali. And then I went back to uni and did my teacher training and ended up teaching in Newham for about 3.5 years. So I worked in education for about 5 years and loved it. I've always loved working with young people. I think there's something quite special about getting young people to connect with the past as well. So that was great. And then I sort of fell out of love with teaching because I was being pushed down a sort of senior leadership route, and I never saw myself as a head teacher or a deputy head or anything like that. And at the time I was like 26 and sort of questioning people's decisions to put a 26-year-old like in charge of how a school should be run. So I left teaching and I didn't have a job lined up, and I thought, right, I had this one goal in mind for like, I don't know, 18 years or whatever of my life, and I've achieved it, I've done it, but what the fuck am I going to do now type thing. And so I was like, right, you're great with young people, so I ended up working in like the third sector, the charity sector, and I did that for a bit. And it was while I was doing that I saw a Nike journalism course. Shout out to this fangirl, because if they didn't share social assets or publicize that, I would never have applied and I probably wouldn't be where I am now. So then I went on this journalism course. It was like 3 months long. It was in association with PA Media and NCTJ, and it came about as a result of the Women's World Cup and there being like a massive push to get more women into sports journalism, specifically football. And that opportunity was fantastic. I got to speak to like Nike affiliated athletes. I got to go to games, learn how to cover matches, learn how to write match reports. Ended up freelancing for PA Media. And at the time they were offering internships. And I thought, you know what, I'm 28, I'm too old for an internship. Like I need to earn money. Like an internship is not going to pay my bills. It's not going to I'm not going to eat on an internship basically. And so I just carried on working, and I got in touch with Corey Pellett, who's the editor-in-chief at Versus, who was offering one of these internships. And I said, look, I can't do that, but I can write, and this is what I've been doing at the weekends. And I think that your platform is definitely one that should be shouting from the rooftops about women's football. And he completely agrees. And he said, we've always wanted to provide coverage for the women's game, but we want to do it in like a really authentic manner, and we just don't have the knowledge or the skill set or the resources to do that justice. So we're not going to kind of like drop bits in and out, because we don't want people to have a certain perception of us. That's just not who we are as a publication, as a publisher, and that's not who we are as people. And so then I started writing a few bits, like player profile pieces, a few kind of like topical bits here and there. And then I left my job just before COVID, and again was like, what the fuck am I going to do now? But while I was teaching, I became aware of a nonprofit called Goals for Girls, and they essentially work with 11 to 16-year-old girls in areas of high deprivation and help them change their lives through football, basically. So I started doing a lot of comms for them. And then around June last year, Corey said to me, look, we are just completely inundated. Like, we just can't get through the day. Like, we need someone else on board. The Euros was happening at the time. He said, could you give us like any time? So I started working 2 days a week for Versus and 3 days a week for Goals for Girls. And then September came around last year, and he said, look, we would like you to be our women's football editor. Like, how would you feel about that? And I think it was not pushed into making that decision, but someone else had offered me a job for the same role. So like a competitor had offered me a job, and I told him about it, and I said, look, they've offered me this. I'm not convinced, basically. And then within 3 days, he had written up a contract for me and given me an offer. So I think that sort of like made the decision for him. And so since then, so the end of September until now, I've been working for Versus full time. And so yeah, so like it's a bit of a crazy one, but it does prove that regardless of your background, if you are really passionate about something and you really, really, really want to give it a go, you can. It might take a little bit longer than what you initially thought, and there will definitely be times where you think, like I've said numerous times, well, what the fuck am I doing, or what the fuck am I going to do? But I think that sort of love for something can really pull you through, and sometimes it can pull you through some really kind of deep moments. At points I wasn't enjoying any of my jobs, and writing was like a massive outlet for me. And just like knowing that I could write about football, that got me through my 9 to 5 quite a lot, actually.
I find I felt a bit similar to you, like when you said like, oh, like it was your dream to be a teacher, and then once you do it and it's like you get it at quite a young age and you're like, oh, I've done this for a bit, and you're like, what now? I don't know if that's just our generation that like can't sit still sort of thing, but yeah, it's a really, really weird sensation. And I don't know if you felt it, but like I felt ridiculous, like talking to my friends or my parents, like something that I've wanted to do like literally since I was a kid. Like I always was like, oh, I want to be a footballer. I was never good enough to be a footballer. It's like, okay, I want to work at Man City. I want to move to Manchester. And my mum was always like, why? Like, why do you want to do that? And I was like, I don't know, just always want to do it. And I did it. And then after a while, I was like, what now? Like, and yeah, I felt so ridiculous, like not complaining, but being like, oh, I don't really like my job. I think I'm going to look elsewhere. And people were like, why? Like, isn't this your dream job? And I'm like, yeah, it is my dream job. They're like, why do you want to leave then? And I found it so hard to articulate that I thought this was going to take me my whole life to achieve. I thought I was going to be, and it wasn't like it was easy, because there was no way that it was easy, but it was just like, I guess when you're a kid, time frames are mental. Like you only have the people immediately in front of you or TV. It's like when you're a kid, you think, okay, I'm probably going to be married at 22, have kids, have a house, and be, now I'm 30 and that's the rest of my life, picket fence sort of thing. And when you like, once I got to university, and then after that, I was like, oh, like within 18 months, I was like, oh, my life's sort of in order here now. And then, yeah, you just sort of get on with it. And I did. But just thinking like, for you to make a complete change, like I can't even begin to think how brave that is. Like,
yeah, at the time you don't really think of it as brave. Like, I definitely thought it was stupid. And I don't know, I think like maybe to answer your question about like, is it something that this generation does? I think like when we were in school, we were never really taught about employment or industries or how to get a job, or and also I never knew that I could work in football in this capacity. I just always assumed that you were a player, you were a physio, you were a nutritionist. Like, I never thought that I could use a skill set that I have, writing, communicating, in football. And that is partly because of representation. You know, growing up, didn't really see many women working in industry. Watched a hell of a lot of men's football, watched every form of sport possible with my granddad, like absolutely loved curling, would watch snooker, like would watch darts, anything and everything, like obsessed with the Olympics. Like, I'm so gassed that the Winter Olympics is on. But again, like never really saw women's football unless it was like a massive game, and then it was mostly FA Cup, like a random Euro game, or but I do remember being 12, so I must have been in like year 8 or whatever, and Faye White came to our school, and it was like I remember seeing her and was like, who is this woman? And then she was like, oh, like I'm captain for Arsenal, like I'm captain for England. I was like, wait, what? Like, that's mad. Like, what are you doing in our school? Like, what are you doing in Tower Hamlets? Like, bruv, it's not set, like, go away. Like, take your FA Cup medals and leave. Like, what is this? But like that, seeing her, like, it's obviously stuck in my head. So there were definitely moments where maybe if I lingered a little bit longer, or if I asked more questions, or just if I'd seen something, I might have come to this realization or this point sooner. But then as you get older, you realize, and I hate saying it because I think it's really corny, but things do happen for a reason. And I think the things that I learn in my jobs have really helped with what I do now. But yeah, it's a bit of a mad journey. I don't think I regret it, but there were some definite like scary moments at points. Yeah.
I always get asked, like, mine wasn't as, I want to say as drastic, because like I left, like when I first moved up to Manchester, I was working like nights at Asda to like pay for stuff whilst I was trying to be a presenter. And in my head, I was like, right, if I can earn this amount of money from presenting in a space of like 4 or 5 months, I was like, I'll quit and I'll do this full time. And I was like, right, don't spend any presenting money. And it like got it. And I got up to my number, and this is going to sound terrible, and I just didn't go in again. I just never went back to Asda. I didn't even quit or anything. I just didn't go in.
You just didn't tell them nothing.
I told them
like, where's Leah,
Matt? I just stopped, and it was so like, and I remember like my mental health was in like absolute tatters, because like I used to spend like, just from the music I like, and like late at night I was listening to like a lot of spoken word and stuff, and it was honestly, it was driving me insane. Like, it was so like real, and constantly I was listening to the same album over and over again, and I was like, my mental state is in like the worst position ever. And it was like in nighttime, it was like I didn't really sleep. I was getting like 4 or 5 hours, so all through the night I was listening to like downbeat music, and it was like tattering my mental health like so bad. And then come 7 o'clock, I was getting on the tram, having not slept, having not spoken to anyone for 10 hours, and I was presenting, and I was like a completely different person. And the weight off my shoulders when I left was like, I can't believe I've been doing that. And like, still to this day, like, I don't think I'll ever be able to replicate the feeling of like seeing that invoice, like the final invoice that needed to hit my number, go into my account. And like, I was like, I don't have to go back. And like, my parents were just helping me move into my house now. My mum was like, "You're gonna go to work?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "I'm not going." And she's like, "Oh, he's gonna take it off." I was like, "No, I'm never going back." And honestly, like it like, it's still now like gives me goosebumps. Like, it was so overwhelming. But to get to my point, like, what would be your advice? That was a long-winded thing, but to get what would be your like advice for someone who's like thinking about it?
Oh God, it's so like, I come from a certain position of privilege. my partner and we still live with her parents because we've been saving up for a mortgage. So I was never in a position where I knew that I had massive overheads. So I always knew that I had a roof over my head. I always knew that, you know, there'd be food in the house and that kind of stuff. And thank God my partner was working throughout the whole of, well, she was working throughout the whole of the first time I gave my job up after teaching. And then the second time, during COVID, she was actually made redundant. And again, like, thank God we were living at home, because I don't like to think about what could happen. So I would say to people, everybody's circumstance is completely different. Make sure you have some form of support network. And I understand that some people's are a lot bigger than others, and some people have resources that you might not have access to. But just make sure, and you've alluded to it slightly as well, that the current situation that you're in, if your mental health or your physical health is damaged as a result of that, something does need to change. But you need to make sure that you have mechanisms in place to make sure that you will be okay ultimately. So that would be the first thing, like make sure that you've got someone to fall back on just in case something goes wrong, and also be prepared to know that these things don't happen immediately. Like you said yourself, like you were working for X amount of time and you knew that you had to save X amount of money, and like you were proper grinding. Like the grind is real. Like it might seem glamorous and we might get to do like ridiculous things. Like I got flown out to Valencia to cover the Red Bull Women's Street Style World Championships. Like that's mad. Like I'd never in my life would I think that I would do that. But that was probably like 3 years worth of work to that point. Like it's not something that you will just get handed on a plate. So just make sure that you're patient and really understand what that means, and don't give up just because you miss out on one opportunity or someone tells you no once. It doesn't necessarily mean that the next person will. And I think from a writing standpoint, if you're brave enough to pitch an idea and you send the pitch in for a piece and the publisher says no, it doesn't mean that the pitch is rubbish. Send it to somebody else. So make sure that you're aware of other avenues that you can access. I guess all of that is like preparation. Just like, was it like fail to prepare? Wait, prepare to, what is it? Fail to prepare, prepared to fail. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, like that is very much, man, I'm so old. Like saying stuff like that, it makes me sound so old.
I love it. No, when you get the opportunity to say something really cliche, I'm like, yes, let me go.
Yeah, and then you say it wrong like that.
Yeah, you have to retake.
Just whatever. But yeah, like I think also you are on your journey the whole time. Like people come and go, so you have to 100% back yourself and believe that you can do something and that you are good at it. And if you're not, what can you do in order to make sure that you will not only be good at it, but you'll be the best person in the room? So backing yourself and having that self-confidence and self-belief is just really important. And again, that comes with time. God, I'd sound like a teacher again.
No, you don't, trust me.
You said you was teaching in Newham. Which part of Newham?
So I taught in two schools. So I taught in Brampton Manor Academy.
I went to Brampton Manor.
Did you?
Yeah, I went to Brampton Manor.
And I taught at Royal Docks.
Ah, okay. I wanted to ask, how do you feel women's football has changed since you've got into the industry compared to before?
Oh my God, it's so much more saturated. Like which is a good thing. Like I don't say that in a bad way at all. Like there's a lot more people, and not just women, covering women's football. So it feels busier. It feels like there's a bit of a buzz. And it's nice to feel that not just after a major tournament or like just before a major tournament. Like it's fairly consistent, which means that the demand is there, which is great, which is fantastic. I think that, what else do I think has changed? One of the things that I've always loved about women's football is the accessibility of players, and how, regardless, like I've interviewed World Cup winners, like 7-time Champions League winners, like Ballon d'Or nominees, and every single one of them has been so gracious and so happy to speak to you. Like, there's no arrogance. There's not any kind of, oh, why am I doing this? Like, I can't be asked to do this. Like, this is just another media day type thing. But I have noticed that that level of accessibility is becoming maybe a little bit more inaccessible in a way, which again is good, because it means those players are at a certain level, they've got a certain profile. They're, you know, speaking to BBC, Sky Sports versus, I don't know, Eurosport, like all of these different broadcasters, publishers, like they've got deals with Nike, they've got deals with Swarovski. That is what you get in the men's game, and that's what we've wanted in the women's game for such a long time. But as someone that's like followed it for a while and has been in it for a few years, I don't want to lose that kind of closeness that you can have with players. And I think a lot of players would say that as well. Just the fact that they can sign autographs immediately after a game, like they can take pictures. And players that I've spoken to since COVID, when I asked them, like, what are you looking forward to? Or like, what have you missed? It's like fans, like I've missed the fans, like I've really missed them. I've missed talking to them. I've missed taking pictures with them, that kind of thing. Yeah, so I'd say those, like, accessibility and maybe like profile has changed massively.
I think that's what like got like its claws into me in terms of the women's game. Like having worked in the men's game, like great, really loved it, still love it now. But like interviewing my heroes and it being like the biggest thing in the world to me, and then they're like, oh, do I have to? And I'm stood right there and I'm like, bro, like I've literally been looking forward to this for months. And you're like, do it quick. And I've prepared loads of stuff, and it's like early on, I'm like nervous now because I'm trying to be quick. And it's, whereas with women's football, I've always found like, okay, we're going to do an interview, but I might speak to you 15 minutes before just about your day, and you'd be happy to give up that time. And it just feels very normal, and they treat you like a human. And it's so mental, because it's like, oh, men's football has degraded me so bad. I just appreciate being treated like a human.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Do you know what it is? I think it's because for such a long time they've just had to graft and get no recognition for it, and so they appreciate every single piece of coverage, like anyone and everyone who's interested in it. Like there's such a level of authenticity and like sincerity involved in women's football. And I don't know about you, but when I speak to female players, and like I've spoken to Premier League players before as well, and if you speak to players in the Prem or players of that standard, they are so PR trained. And so the conversation that you have with them is so superficial, and your questions are analysed like 48 hours before. You submit 10, you can ask 7, and the 3 that you can't are the ones that you really want answers to. And in the women's game, of course, there are like procedures and protocols, like your questions get vetted, but more often than not, it's an actual conversation, it's a dialogue, it's a back and forth. And I think that as well is something that I do really love about the women's game. Just having those conversations that can leave lasting impressions and like really impact people who listen to them or read them.
Do you think that can change as the women's game gets bigger? Do you think they might want to kind of modulate after the men's game and kind of get that kind of seriousness into it, should I say?
Yeah, I don't think it's like, I don't think they would model it on the men's game because it's existed the way that it has for such a long time. So I don't think that they would kind of like rebrand it or repackage it in that manner, just because it wouldn't work. And yeah, I do think that the more money we have, the more coverage we have, like the more these players like distance themselves from fans, maybe not through their own choice. Yeah, because they will be PR trained up to their eyeballs, and there will be things that they can and can't talk about. But I do genuinely think like those that have been in it for a while, and I'm not talking about like the Ellen Whites or the Jill Scotts, like I'm talking about like Leah Williamson, like she's been in it for a long time, but she's still only 24. She has been PR trained, but because she's seen the game at so many different levels, she's so willing to give like an honest, open opinion. Whereas I don't know, the Jess Parks of the world, like those who are coming through at this point where there's so much investment, so much interest, we might see a difference in how she presents herself or how she shares her opinions. And I think that's great because people are different. And if anything, it does show growth in the game. But the Jess Parks of football can still play football at the moment with the Leah Williamsons and the Ellen White. So you have this like intergenerational world. And I think that's really cool. I spoke to Beth Mead and Leah Williamson just before Christmas, and it's the first time that I did a joint interview. Oh my God, it's the best interview I've ever done. Like just the way that they vibed off one another. And there's only 2 years between them, but Beth's journey was so different to Leah's, and just the answers that they gave because of that. And just they were interacting with one another. Oh, like I never knew about that. Like, and oh, like Beth, I know like you're really close to your family. You might not want to answer this question. And that's Leah saying that. That's not me. Like I, at one point, I just sort of like, maybe I'll just leave my phone here like on record and I'll just leave and they can just like conduct the interview themselves. You know what I mean? But I think the stories in women's football are still so appealing. And they're just, and I think it's because they are seen to be people. Whereas in the men's game, like you say, Liam, like they're your idols, they're your heroes. When you get to meet them, you've got like 2.5 minutes and they're they don't really see you as a person. And in that instance, you don't see them as a person. Like it's just, they've been shaped into like a brand really, which isn't why we fall in love with football. Like we fall in love with football because of the passion, because of the people, because of the stories. Because of the emotions that it makes us feel, and there's nothing emotional about speaking to a robot.
I found that like just talking about like different footballing journeys, more so now you're starting to see more like linear academy first, like from being whatever under sevens to all the way up to the academy. And I feel like we see it more now, but I remember when I first moved to City, and it was like I remember looking at like Demi Stokes's like Wikipedia, and she'd played like in Canada and stuff. And I was like, she's not that much older than me. I'm like, how's she done this much? And she's like my age. And I just found it like mental. And then like when we was on tour, I was speaking to Claire Emsley, and we was in Miami. She was like, I went to university here. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like you're a professional footballer? Like me being naive and like being very early into the sport sort of thing, I was like, you're a professional footballer. In my head, like surely you just went to an academy, and then when you got to wherever that was, then City came in for you. And she was like, no. She was like, I was over here for 3 years. And I used to find that so interesting. And it's just like when they're brought up around all these different people thrown into like different mixes, like you were saying, it's like intergenerational, if I don't know if you said that. Like I feel like that opens you up so much more, and there's so much more trust. Whereas and even like going back to being a kid reading newspapers, like men's teams like in scandals, like front page of newspapers, and it's almost like once someone's been burned, like everyone's now wary. And I feel like that trust in the women's game is still there because nothing like that's happened. And it's like, it's been a slow burner, but when like now it's like you're saying, it's starting to get more saturated, but I feel like everyone in the women's game like really cares. Like you're not just dipping your toe in to like being involved. It's like, okay, because so many people started this journey a while ago, and it's like, okay, I was doing this when like I wasn't right. I wasn't anything, like I was just doing this for passion, and like the passion's still so big amongst media. And I just think it shows so much in terms of trust with the players, like the content we produce, the stories we get. And I just think that it's honestly amazing.
Yeah, I mean, James, you came to the Emirates, didn't you, at the beginning of the season?
Yeah.
With Arsenal, Chelsea, and versus hosted that match, and we did like a whole campaign called New Beginnings and spoke to several players. And part of that campaign was that we would have like a panel discussion, And someone that was on that panel was Tim Stillman, who writes for the Arse blog, just anything and everything that you need to know about Arsenal. Like, Tim is your man. He has been reporting and writing about women's football for over 20 years, like before it was on TV, before it was in the pages, like before there were multi-million broadcasting deals. And I think people like Tim have helped so much to make women's football what it is. And without the Tims of the world, we certainly wouldn't be here talking about women's football. And you're right, like, it is that love, it is that passion, and just that authenticity that shines through with the women's game. And again, I hope we're never at risk of losing that, because money talks and all that. But right now, I've just got Dizzy Rascal, dirty cash in my head. That's all I've got right now. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, the stories in the women's game are still relatively uncovered, like unturned, those stones, and their journeys are so different because development pathways are so few and far between, and so a lot of them do go to the States, or did go to the States, just because collegiate level football is insane. Like, the way that they do things out there is just absolute madness. But yeah, the stories are something else.
Massively right. We always talk about it, 'cause it's just like, honestly, I was speaking about it at work today, and I feel like we ask all of our guests, we've got to talk Euros, we've got to talk women's Euros. We'll split it into two parts. How are you feeling? How do you feel about it being a home Euros, first of all? How are you feeling about it?
I think, like, from like a work standpoint, it makes my life a lot easier, I'm not gonna lie. And at the moment, when I think of Euros, I just think about how crazy busy we're going to be. And sometimes I think, first and foremost, I have to remember that I'm a fan, and I can't let that stuff kind of like blur my vision when it comes to the women's game. So I think I'm really excited about the fact that I can go to as many games as I possibly can do, just because they are in England. For the Women's World Cup, my partner and I drove from Croydon to Nice, like, in one day to watch England, and then we drove from Nice to Bordeaux, and then from Bordeaux to Le Havre to watch another game, and then a month later I got the train from King's Cross to Lyon. Like, that was a stint. I don't think I've recovered from that, and I was like 3 years ago. So like, it'll be like me driving from like here to Sunderland is nothing like compared to that. So like,
Nice is amazing, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. When we went, I'm not gonna lie, it was so grey and so cloudy.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was awful. And you know, sometimes you go somewhere and you're so gassed for it because people are like, oh, it's really nice, like the weather's great, blah blah blah, and you go and it's just like absolutely raining buckets. You're like, oh great.
That's so good.
Yeah, but the food was good. Like, the food was really, really good. Yeah, so like, I don't regret it. Like, it was a good experience. I do regret putting the mileage on the car because it like massively like devalued it, but yeah, no.
It's an experience. You can't put mileage on memories. So
yeah, that's it. But no, I'm excited that I can watch a lot more games, and I think that home competitions always, like, there's a benefit to the home nation. So, and I will take all the extra bits, like all the extra give that we can have in the chance of getting some silverware. So yeah, like, I'm excited. Like, I'm excited. What about you two? Are you excited for it?
It's gonna be mad. It's gonna be mad. You know, before I was being shy about it, but like, the more I see like WSL games and stuff, like, I do think we'll win the Euros. Like,
oh my god,
I understand.
I was waiting for one of you to say it. Oh my god.
I tried. No, I said it in the beginning. Then Liam kind of said, "Are you sure?" And I was like, I was kind of silent about it for a few weeks. But like, at the end of the day, I'm seeing Frank Kirby do a madness. I'm seeing Lauren Hemp do a madness. I can't help but not think, at home, Wembley, I do think it's coming home. But I don't want to say it's coming home because that's always the jinx. So England will win it. But like, I think it's just gonna be amazing to see so many different teams. I think, especially Norway, I want everyone to look out for Norway, because you don't really hear people talk about Norway. You hear Spain, you hear Germany. Obviously, they mash work, but Norway. Those are like my sleeper favorites. Like if England somehow don't win it, I think Norway will do a madness.
Which is mad because like Norwegian football in particular, like women's football, like dominated the European stage for like years and years. But yeah, like their team right now is stacked. Like it's so good. Like I thought it was good during the World Cup, and they've had a few years to like develop those players. So yeah, like I am really looking forward to that. I don't think anyone should underestimate them at all. I'm looking forward to seeing Spain play.
Could be Barcelona.
Yeah. Yeah, like just because like the roster is just unbelievable, and like tiki-taka football, like everyone loves it. Like to watch that, like it's unbelievable. Like it's beautiful to watch, like poetry in motion. And to have like Alexia Putellas like in England, like she's every year, like we have like our personal and organizational aims, and like my personal and actually an organizational one, because we think it will really put us on the map, is to like produce content with Alexia Putellas. Like that is like my personal North Star, and that is in terms of women's football. Like if we were to speak to someone that, you know, we would be really, really privileged to speak to, it would be her. Someone else as well, like we just think it's completely like versus, if I can say that, like Shanice Van Der Saanden, just
cold
absolute legend in every way possible. And I feel like she's gone under the radar a bit like in the last couple of years, and I think that's just dumb. Like people are doing that. Like you need to wake up, like just shake them. And I think it's mad. Like she's played for Liverpool. Like that's, people didn't appreciate that at the time. But yeah, no. And on that note, like I'm excited. I'm always excited to watch the Netherlands. Always excited to watch them. I'm not sure we're going to win though.
Having all these like teams and players so accessible. Like, I'll be honest, I'm a lazy fan. Like, if I can't find it, if I can't type into Google or watch on TV, I'm like the trademark social media user journey person. If you're taking me out of app, or if I've got to do too much stuff, I can't do it. Like, just having the attention span.
You're not clicking the link.
Honestly, like it's so bad. Having worked in social media as well, I'm like, oh, you should do it this way. And then I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it that way. It's like really, I just find it so backwards, but that's just how I am. So being able to literally just whack it on TV, maybe have to press the red button or go to another channel, for me personally, I can't wait to do that. And then from like a work standpoint, I'm a bit like you, like having everyone here is going to be like probably quite overwhelming, but just the thought of the opportunity is like, I don't know when I'll get this again. Like,
it's players in their prime as well. Like to speak with players who are at the pinnacle of their game, like just I can't describe to people, like to sit in a room with someone who is just phenomenal, like at what they do, like it's indescribable in a way. It's mad, and it will be completely overwhelming. We're going to be shattered by the end of like July, but it will be worth it. Like and in terms of like coverage, I think in terms of women's football, there are so many kind of like local grassroots platforms, influencers, individuals that do so much to promote the women's game. Like this is like a golden opportunity. Like if there's anyone out there that's dabbled in it and like they're a really strong writer, they don't have the time, or like they really want to kind of like go and capture footage, like they want to leverage TikTok or whatever it is that they want to do, like get out there and do it. Like there's going to be so many opportunities for you to kind of really hone your craft and put your face and your name out there, which is exciting as well, like to see the kind of up and coming journalists or influencers or videographers that are going to come out of this. That'll be really cool.
Just like even more like the new generation of fans, like I think going forward, like legacy fans from this will be amazing. For me, like going to the World Cup to watch the Lionesses, I'd never been to an England game before. I just had such a negative experience growing up with the England team, and I just had no interest whatsoever in the men's team. I was like, I don't really don't really care for it. Like, okay, it's on. I'll watch the World Cup because it's the World Cup. I'll watch the Euros because it's the Euros, and it's like it's on tangent again. But like my favorite Euros growing up was the one England weren't in. I remember watching it with my dad and being like, this is amazing. Like, this is like the best thing. Like, I watch all the games and not have my dad get frustrated at the commentary, or my dad get frustrated at the result of the game. And like, I remember it was like Russia did really well and Holland did really well. And it was like Arshavin, Schneider, Van der Vaart.
The 2008 one. Yeah, the 2008.
Yeah, and I was like, this is amazing. And then after that, it was like my head was like a scouting machine. I just wanted to know all the players all the time, like who's coming up next. And I think so many people are going to have the opportunity to watch it and they're in their back garden essentially, and just like fall in love with the Lioness team. Like, not even going as far as saying like, oh, being able to find, oh, I really like the Holland team, I really like the Spain team. Like, just to fall in love with the Lionesses, and then they're all in the WSL. So many of them in the WSL, and you can go watch them. Like, and they're not far away. And it's well, we were saying these superstar footballers when we meet them, and it's nothing. It's such a letdown, and it's so never meet your idol sort of thing. But in the women's game, like, it's not like it's, you come away feeling like, oh my God, like Steph Houghton was everything that I thought she was going to be. And it's like, oh, and little things, it's like, okay, I introduced myself at the beginning, and they say, okay, like, see you later, Liam. And you're like, oh my God, they remember my name.
Yeah.
And
it's
for
why
little
they're
kids to be able
for
little kids to be able to do that after the game, after watching your favorite player score a goal, and then you go speak to them after the game, like, it's mind-blowing, like, and it's so exciting. Like,
that is what inspirational is, isn't it? Like, having that level of relatability. And again, like, linking back to accessibility, like to see someone who is just as great off the pitch as they are on it, why would you not be inspired by that? Like, why would a 5-year-old, 15-year-old, a 45-year-old not think, oh my God, like, they are an incredible person. Like, they're not just an athlete. And this is why I find it really difficult in certain circumstances and in certain contexts to separate the person from the player, or to separate the artist from the art, because they're intrinsically linked. They're one person. And I think that in women's football, female football players, athletes, they are genuinely great people. All of the ones that I've spoken to anyway. Like, I'm sure there are some duds out there, don't get me wrong, like, they are people at the end of the day. But yeah, and I guess on the flip side of that, like, we saw last summer, like, we had some really atrocious scenes happen in the men's Euros. I will put my hand on my heart and say that's not going to happen in the women's Euros. Like, that passion is not going to boil over into complete and utter anarchy. But on top of that, the love that people had for the England team last year might fuel a new love for the Lionesses. So similarly, in the way that you say that you enjoyed watching 08 because they weren't in it, because you didn't have that distraction of like, oh my God, we're going to lose, oh my God, I'm going to get frustrated, oh my God, my dad's going to throw the TV out the window. Like, people did fall in love with England again. And I think that those people might think, oh, like, I actually had a really good time at the Euros last year. Like, this is actually bringing up nostalgia for me. Like, I might actually tune in and watch that. Or I might go and take my mate or whoever to go and watch a game, because tickets are still available. Like, you can buy tickets. Just kind of plug that out there. But yeah, no, it is really exciting. I'm really looking forward to it.
You just mentioned it briefly then, like, how they're, like, the player and the person are intrinsically linked. Like, me and Jay have conversations, like, quite regularly about, like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how to word it, and this is literally what we talk about, like, how to word it. Like, someone performs badly and you want to say, like, oh, they've not played well, but you also, like, you really admire this person, and you can't, I see, I'm struggling to speak now, but like, the language,
you don't want to offend, like, you don't, because they are people and they do read what people write and they do listen to commentary. I think if you are objectively, not objectifying, that's the complete wrong word, don't do that to anyone. If you are objectively critiquing someone's performance, and at their core, their sole purpose is to be the best that they possibly can be, they will take that on board. It becomes quite dangerous when you inflate people's egos for the sake of it. And we've seen that this week, how damaging it can be to put people on a pedestal and just completely remove them from reality, because they then think that they're invincible and they're untouchable. So yeah, like, nobody ever want to hurt anyone's feelings, and if you do, like, check yourself, man. Like, don't be doing that. So from like a journalism standpoint, like, never be afraid to critique, so long as you're doing it for the right reasons. Like, don't throw shade on anyone just because you feel like it.
Nice. That was that. I mean, you've answered my question spot on. That is something, like, when we speak about it, and I'm like, and Joe will say something, he's like, oh, I feel I don't want to put this out, and I'm like, it's true. What you've not.
It's scary.
If like, oh, they've had so-and-so's had a really bad shooting night, and you're like, I feel like that's a bit undeserved, and you're like, okay, but let's look at the stats. They've had 8 shots, 1 on target. You haven't told a lie. And then, like, I just wanted to hear it from like a journalistic point of view. Like, I'm in no way, shape, or form a journalist. Like, no, I can't. I literally.
Neither am I, mate. Don't worry.
But yeah, I was just really interested on your take of things. But
yeah, I mean,
I guess I felt the same, but you just articulated it much better.
Yeah.
No. Like 9 times out of 10, they're going to know that they've had a shit performance as well. Like, you know when you've not done a good job, or when you've not met your own levels of expectation. But yeah, ultimately they just want to be the best at what they do and get better, and just continuing to strive for perfection. And it's part and parcel of the job, isn't it? Like, something that we talk about is that as the women's game elevates and more people can see it, more people can access it, it's going to be open to critique. And if you speak to players, they're well aware of that. Like, they welcome it. Like, they want people to analyse their games. They want people to critique them. They don't want like criticism of who they are as people, because like that doesn't come into play on the pitch. Off the pitch, 100%. Like, you're moving mad. Like, people need to tell you so. But yeah, no. Just if you feel that you're within your reasons to critique someone for their performance, then go for it. Also, Jay, I'm sure, like, I'm such a fan of what you do. I'm sure whatever you want to put out there, it will be the right thing. So don't
I just think it's one of those things. I think sometimes, as passion gets involved, sometimes, like, especially during a really tense game, like, that's the thing. I've developed the drafts technique. Put something in the drafts. After the game, you have to think, like, was that decent? If it's not decent, then it won't come out there. But I feel sometimes with the women's game, a lot of people idolize the players to the point where it's not about the football.
They're blinded.
And then you don't want to hurt no one's feelings. Because
what was it? I can't remember the game. I think it was Steph Houghton took a free kick and she scored it. And then Ian Wright was like, yeah, but the wall didn't jump.
Yeah.
Everton, beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Ooh,
that's a fair point. That's a fair criticism. Yeah. The wall did not jump. Like, the purpose of the wall is to prevent the ball from going in the net.
Yeah.
The neck? God, the net. Don't shoot balls at people's necks. Like, that's a fair point. And he got flamed for it. Yeah. But there was nothing wrong with what he said. But it's because in women's football they've had to protect it for such a long time.
Yeah.
Because women are constantly, degraded. Like, women have to work twice as hard in order to get half the amount of praise. So people can be precious and they can be protective of it because they've had to be for such a long time. And often female footballers are criticised for things that aren't performance related. Like, a couple of weeks ago, we had the whole Harder Cuthbert situation where a certain tabloid, like, there's never any reason for you to sexualize a player. Like, why not talk about the performance? Like, why not talk about the goals that were scored? Like, why not talk about the link-up play? Like, these are 2 of the world's best attacking players, and like, you're reducing them to noises people make in a bedroom. Like, and that's where you can get pissed off, and that's where things can get heated, because that type of commentary is something that female footballers and people working in women's football have had to deal with for a long time, which is why they're also quick to protect and also quick to stand up for. But yeah, I
can't believe that ever got passed.
Man,
I
it
can't
goes through
believe
so many people to get to print. Like that's the thing. Like,
yeah, I feel the same when I see some tweets from companies, and I'm like, how is it? How are we here? Like, I know there's a process, and I know you've gone for a lot of people, and I don't know how they've not gone. This is disgusting. This is, but even on like it's just no, it's mind blowing. It's inexcusable, and it's honestly mind blowing.
It's because the people in the room that helped to make those decisions all looked like one another.
Yeah.
You know, this is the issue with spaces that aren't diverse. Like people think it's a tick boxing exercise. No, you produce incredible work when you have a diverse workforce, because you have different opinions, different lived experiences. Actually, do you think we should say that because X, Y, and Z? Oh, I'm not too sure about that. Oh no, that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought it up, X, Y, and Z. You know, but in that instance, everyone in that room, everyone on that sports desk, I'm gonna put it out there and say they were men. Like,
yeah,
you know, yeah, you have an issue when you look around the room and everyone looks like you. So.
More of a personal note for you. What's been your favorite piece of content that you've created?
Oh my god!
I mean, it's a horrible question because
I thought this might be a question.
Horrible.
I know. I said today, I was like, oh, like, are there any questions like you want to ask that I could think about? He's like, no, it's just going to be a chat. And I was like, oh my god, there's going to be a question like content or whatever. Oh god. Do you know what? Something that I'm really proud of, and something that I've been able to like translate into the women's game is the social tone that we use at Versus. So something that we're known for are our captions. So it's like very reactive content, mainly on Instagram. That's where they live, that's where they do best. And when I can write a caption that I know will absolutely bang and put that out into the world, and it gets the engagement that I want it to get or expect it to get, like I'm so happy, because that's like our bread and butter. And that's something that Versus has been known for a long time, and it's something that we were not anxious about. We were like, is this going to do just as well? And the ones that have gone insane have been the Champions League ones, which is great because we get to talk about European clubs and players that, you know, a lot of people might not know about. In terms of something that's like maybe a little bit more, I'm not going to say substantial because that is substantial for me, or like something that's like a little bit more like longer form content, I am really proud of what I spoke about earlier. So our activation with Arsenal at the beginning of the season, that was just, it felt really different. It felt like we were kind of pioneering match day experiences for fans of women's football, and getting to speak with Vivian Miedemar, Nikita Paris, Lotte Wubben-Moy, Kim Little, Beth Mead. Like I spoke to Katie McCabe, and those two interviews didn't get published in the end, but Katie McCabe is honestly one of the best people that I've ever spoken to, and it was like a very kind of like last minute, well, we've got 15 minutes and like you're on Katie's media day timetable, do you want to talk to her? And I was like, oh, like, okay, like fine. But again, it's because she was just so willing to have a conversation, and she's just so down to earth and just loves the game and wants people to love women's football as much as she does. So I'd say like Arsenal New Beginnings, our captions. I did some like quite nice grassroots based work in partnership with Size that was called Good Game, where we profiled several people that were just like doing bits basically in football, and one of them was our good friend Nancy Baker. So it was good to kind of profile and elevate people that don't always get the praise that they deserve. And just doing anything in terms of grassroots football is always like, I think there needs to be more of that, because that is where the game starts from. What about you? Are there any like particular Versus pieces of content that like you enjoyed? I'm doing a little bit of insights research now.
You know what? Like, this is going to sound super like,
I love all of it,
maybe
man.
lame or like fanboy, but I'll be honest, the captions over like all over like lockdown and stuff proper made me like fall in love with the game again. Like, having left City to join the BBC when I did, And then like what I thought the job was going to be was sort of taken away due to COVID. And I was just like, I just feel like I have no creativity in me. Like I was so like, just like, let me just go collect my paycheck and go home. Well, I wasn't even leaving home. Like, let me go back upstairs after collecting my paycheck, sort of thing. And then like being in a space where you can't meet people, all over Zooms, all over emails, and you can't really be yourself, like I felt. And then I was like, maybe there isn't place for me in this. Like, I was like, maybe Man City was like the exception of who allowed me to be myself, sort of thing. Because I was the same with captions. Like, I used to love doing captions, and then so I'd do like random quotes from like Dave Chappelle stand up.
Oh, sick.
People would be like, oh my God, Dave Chappelle. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm having an inside joke with some random guy from whatever country. And I was like, this is like the most fun I've had in so long. And then going to the BBC, it's so like straight shooting and just, this is what we're going to do. And it's going to be, okay, we're going to caption this, Liam Loftus wears purple jumper. Send it. Brilliant. And it just sort of made me feel like, oh, there's not a space for me here, sort of thing. And then like following Versus and seeing like their captions, I was like, this is how we speak. Like, this is like what we want to see. And like almost seeing how well received it is, like definitely gave me back. Like there definitely is a place for me in this industry, sort of thing.
I absolutely love that. Like, that's the point of the captions, to create a community. Like, sometimes we've got like the maddest cultural references, and those are the ones that people will pick out and they will absolutely love and have jokes about. And it will be like, I don't know, someone from Canada laughing with someone from Scunthorpe, like you've just said. Like, and to create that space where people can come together just to kind of appreciate the game for what it is, and just like really, in your case, like reigniting their passion and love for the game. Like, we pride ourselves on that, and that is something that will, as Versus continues to grow and maybe change, we will never ever lose that style of writing, that content, that purpose. Like, that is who we are, essentially. So like, I love that you love them as much as we love writing them, because sometimes we crack up like just putting them together. Like, people are like, how do you write them? How do you do it? Honestly, like, we use Slack, which is basically like a work WhatsApp messaging service.
Slack, bro.
Did you? Oh my God, we love it. Maybe you hated it.
All them different channels. I was like, what's going on?
No, because like people. So at Versus, there's only 7 of us, and we've grown. So I joined in September, and then we had someone join, Jay, who is the Footballist. So he runs the Footballist Instagram account. He joined literally like the end of last month. So in the space of 6 months, we've added 2 more people to the roster, but there's still only 7 of us. And so we have to be like quite close knit, and Slack is where it's at. Like, our Slack is jokes, like just the retail, we've been saying for a while now, you know, you can get like those wheels, like fortune, like wheels or whatever, like Wheel of Fortune. So I'm gonna put like random things on it and spin it, and then that's what you have to write in a cap. Like, you just have to try and put that into a caption. But yeah, no, absolutely love that you love them.
I think my favorite Versus, I think the best thing about Versus, especially in terms of the women's game, I think Versus make women's football cool. And for someone like me, I'm a 23-year-old black man, like, women's football can sometimes feel like it's more centered towards the kids, whereas I feel Versus brings it together. And it's like, I could send that to my friends and say, look what's in that caption, like, this is why you're missing out on women's football and stuff like that. And I think it really bridges the gap, because sometimes you want women's football to feel kind of, you want it to be grown up as well, that you can share with your friends and stuff like that. And obviously that Arsenal New Beginnings thing was incredible. And just having so many people that cared about women's football and cared about Arsenal and Chelsea, like, just in one room, and that kind of vibe and everything about it, it just kind of showed you that Versus care about women's football as well as men's football. And I think actions speak louder than words. So if you can go out there and execute and show, like, this is what women's football means to us, like, it leaves a lasting image.
Yeah, that's what we strive for every day, like, to have hosted in like the Diamond Lounge, which has got like a 20-year waiting list and costs like tens of thousands of pounds a year. Like it's a level of access that, you know, are given to multi-millionaires or like ex-players. And we have this for the first WSL game of the season. Like, this is completely unheard of. Like, this level of prestige is something that is so common in the men's game. And so we really wanted to apply that to the women's game, just to show people that it is on the same level. The quality is the same. Like, and we strive for parity in everything that we do. And yeah, just try and as hard as we can to make sure it's a 50-50 split in terms of content. Most of the content that we do when we speak with players and those kind of like exclusive interviews, that comes out of our pocket. We're not, like, 9 times out of 10, there's no brand affiliation involved, there's no money changing hands, and it comes out of our pocket because we know it's important and we know that it will be really well received, and it's something that we want to do. We're not doing it for the sake of it. You know, it comes from a place of love and respect. Like, the women's game deserves to have all of these things, and if we can really show people who are a lot bigger than us, who have a lot more money than us, you know, have been doing this for a lot longer with, you know, more than 7 people in like a tiny office in Brixton. Like, if we can do this, like, imagine what you could do to really change the game. It begs the question, why aren't more people doing it?
Yep.
Yeah, I think with Versus, it's like, it's how I see it. It's like, this is my football. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is how I want to read about football, and they're the reference I want to see. Like, I don't really want to go on like, whereas my dad probably read the newspaper and saw the match report in however many words. It's like, now I'm already on Instagram, so I can just go on Instagram and read the match report in a way that I understand. And it's like, it is mental, because it's like, you haven't got to tell me how the goal was scored. You can describe it. You've not got to say, oh, it was a free kick that trickled under the wall. Like, I know what that looks like, but you lot describe games and articulate games in a way that I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And it's like, this is not one of yours, but it's like, oh, it could be, I can't even think of the quote, but I'm gonna ignore that because it's completely gone. But you know what I mean? Like, you articulate things in a way that, like, our generation will understand and likes, and for me that's so important.
Me too. You're saying all the right stuff. I didn't but like, people listen, I didn't pay them to say this. Like
we got PayPal.
Oh, that is on a very different note. You know, this is a random bit of information. I occasionally do this. Jay's knows about this. Apparently in America there's no bank transfers. That's why they have to PayPal,
I heard that.
And Venmo and Cash App each other. Because there's no bank transfer. You can't just like hop on your phone and transfer money to someone.
That makes more sense. Like,
does make sense, doesn't it?
That does. For time, I didn't know what Venmo was. I was like, what is this? Like, what are they doing to one another? Like, what is happening here? But yeah, no, that makes sense. But also, why not? Like, why can't they do bank transfers?
I have no idea.
Tune in next week when we analyse the American economics.
Imagine. I'm waiting for the article. Amie, what have you got coming up? What have you got coming up? What can we look forward to?
Oh,
plug yourself. Let's throw a plug in.
Yeah, no. I'm not sure if I can say, but I will say. I just won't like name names or name brands or anything like that. And the feature already exists. So we are looking to run a series called What Ballers Wear, specifically looking at female players. So something that we talk about a lot at Versus is convergence culture. You've had me for an hour and now I can't talk. Convergence culture. So, you know, the intersections of football and music, like football and fashion. When we talk about big societal issues and topics, like we use football as like a vehicle in order to access all of these different things. And we have done What Ballers Wear before. And I talk about it all the time, and so do the boys. You've got so many kind of like drip videos in the men's game. Like, if I have to see Benzema stepping out of a fucking Lambo like one more time,
spinning.
Like,
I don't want to keep the spin.
Yeah,
he is the king,
like,
though.
He is. I'm not. Yes, I'll give you that. Like, I'll give you that. Sane, man, like his outfits are crazy. Like, I'm gonna put him in the mix there as well. Anyway,
I've got a mental story I'll tell you about Sane after.
Okay, right.
Nothing bad. He's just a hilarious guy.
So like we want to do that for the women's game. Like we want to really elevate fashion in women's football, in particular like streetwear, just the stuff that we wear, the stuff that we love, the stuff that Jay, you said it before, like makes football cool. And there are so many ballers in the women's game that just have an unbelievable dress sense.
Kenza Dali.
Oh my god, mad! Like her prep collection is crazy, like absolutely insane. Like so we wanted to do this for a while, and so we will be doing that with 4 players, and that will be coming out before the Euros. So like that's content that will exist regardless of the Euros happening this summer. We've got some big things on the horizon for the Euros that I can't talk about, but I think they will be game changing, and it will be like a really cool thing to be a part of, because I think it will really kind of turn things up in terms of how people cover the women's game and what they provide for the women's game and all that kind of stuff. So what ballers wear, I'm really looking forward to that, looking forward to putting that together. I think the visuals for that are going to be sick as well. What else have we got? I mean, February's going to be a mad month for international football. Like my fingers are going to be bleeding from the captions that I have to write. Like, I'm looking forward to the Arnold Clark Cup. That should be interesting. Like a new one. Obviously going to tune into She Believes as well, just because, you know. Although no Rapinoe, no press. Did you see that?
Yeah,
recently?
all the seniors are gone.
Oh, the comments as well are just like said with such fire. Like, well, is Rhea Ham still playing football? No, but like, don't leave it. Like, don't take it to another level. Like, of course, players have to show their worth. But so lots of football coming up for me to cover in the short term. What ballers wear, and then some more crazy activations ahead of the Euros, which I'm sure you'll both be invited to.
Positive, Amie. Honestly, I can't thank you enough for today. I've loved the conversation.
It was a serious conversation.
Really honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I really do appreciate you coming on.
No, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
We were in New York. This is going to sound so flexy, but I was on tour with City. I was in New York, and we'd just been to the NBA store. He did like an activation with D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah.
And we were driving home, and he was talking about like LA. He's like, have you been to LA? No, but whatever. And he was wearing like, during like an off-white Nikes that first came out. And he was wearing a pair
one
of
12.
The top 10.
Yeah, that's it.
And he was wearing a pair of them, and I was like, they're so sick. And he's like, have you not got any? And I was like, no, like they sold out so fast. And it was like the same with most shoes. Like at retail, it might be a push, but you can probably afford them. And we were talking about it, and I was like, oh, like it's so sick. And he's like, don't you have a pair? And I was like, no. And he was like, just ring Nike. And I was like, and I went, what? And he went, just ring Nike and ask for a pair. And I was like, Leroy, I don't have Nike's number. And he was like, what? And I was like, if I ring Nike, I'm ringing customer services. And he like couldn't get his head around that. I don't know if it was like a language barrier, he just couldn't get his head around it. He thought it was mental that I can't just ring Nike and be like, oh, I really like these trainers. And obviously this was at the time when City was sponsored by Nike as well. So that was even, he was like, you work here and you're on camera. And I was like, I know. He's like, trust me. He's like, bro, just ring Nike. And that was like his whole heart advice, like not taking a mick or anything. He was like, bro, ring Nike. When we got out, we were whatever, carried on the car journey, and then we get in the lift to go back, and like we're in the lift and not really talking, like we're on our phones, and then my floor 3 or whatever, and he's like, don't forget, he's like, make sure you ring that. And I'm just like, who what does he think? Like, I can't just do Mike's
you're gonna
number.
ring like the Oxford Street flag store, just like
I was like, oh, you're right. Yeah, Liam Loftus from Man City. Yeah, you couldn't send me some off-whites, like, could you? Like, I'll pay for them, but I just need them. It was so funny, and I was just like, And he just couldn't, like, looking at me like I was absolutely mental. Like, he was like, well, have you not tried ringing them? I was like, no. But to be fair, thinking about it now, in his defense, I don't know anyone that's tried that.
Yeah.
Maybe
True.
that would work, because it's almost one of the things that's so ridiculous. You just think, I'm not going to try that. But anyone who's looking for a pair of sold out Nike trainers,
just call Nike. Yeah, Liam's got the number. Just call Nike.
It's on the website. Help. I think the number's there. Maybe chat to a virtual bot. We'll sort you out. It'll be fine. Don't worry. Just tell them Leroy sent you. It will be fine.
God.
Right, I'll do the extra again. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Amie, appreciate you so much. Jay, as always, big thank you to you, bro. And we'll see you all next time. Peace.